Hey guys, Sal here with SS Multimedia. Today we're going to be talking about the three different multiplication properties. Okay, so our objective for today will be understanding the three different properties of multiplication and using them to help multiply. Okay, so now we're going to underline the three different important parts, the two different important parts of our objective. So one is, of course, we have to understand both of them. So understanding the three different properties of multiplication and using them to help multiply. Okay, I know it looks like I underlined the entire objective, but really I'm just underlining the important parts. Today's was a short objective. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're doing. So first, we're going to be learning about the commutative property of multiplication. Then there's going to be the identity property, and then there's going to be the zero property. Okay, and I know that last one sounds a little boring, but just as important as any of the others. Okay, so now that we know what we're going to be doing, let's get started. The commutative property of multiplication means two numbers can be multiplied in any order and the product will remain the same. Okay, so what that means, okay, that the two numbers part is, so let's go here, actually a little less zoom. So two numbers can be multiplied in any order. And this is the main part. The product will remain the same. So let's draw a star there because that is the most important part. Two numbers can be multiplied in any order. The product will remain the same. So let's zoom back out here. Okay. Now, how are we going to figure this out? How am I going to show this? I'm going to give you an example here. Okay, so let's do something simple, 3 times 2. Okay. So let's do 3 times 2. I'm sure you know what this equals. 3 times 2 equals what? It equals 6, right? And I'm going to draw an array here because this will help you understand what this property means. So we have 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to draw that 2 times. 1, 2, 3. There you go. So that is 3 times 2 is what this shows. Now we're going to do 2 times 3. 2 times 3, right? So those are the two numbers, or two factors, if you want to say it like that, can be multiplied in any order, right? So we're in that part here now. Okay, it's being multiplied in two different orders here, right? So now we have the two different properties showing it here. So one is 2 and 3, the other is 3 and 2. Will you get the same number? Yes, let's check. 2 times 3. Okay, now let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 times 3. And you still got 6. Right? So now the product will remain the same. Okay, that's the important part. Does 6 equal 6? Yes. So that's what the commutative property. Guys, so we covered the commutative property. So now let's talk about the identity property of multiplication. So what that means is the product of any number and 1 is that number. So that doesn't make much sense, like at all. So let's break this down. So instead of having a variable here, and there, so we have any number in that number. So they're referring to the same thing. So instead of having x and y, let's just do an actual number here. Right, so we have any number, let's make that 3, make that 3 again. Right, so now that makes sense. And that fits in. So now we have the product of any number in 1. So the product of 3 and 1, 3 times 1 is 3. Right? So now some could argue, hey, maybe that only works with 3, right? Maybe this property was only made for 3 and 1. No, that's just a variable we chose to put. We can put any other variable we want. Now we can put, instead of 3 here, we can put 129, right? And 129 would go here. So now let's do this. 129 times 1 equals 129. Right, so this property works with any number in 1. Right? And now because we know about the commutative property of multiplication, we know that it works both ways. It could be 1 times 3 equals 3, or 1 times 129 equals 129. So that's what the identity property of multiplication. Any number, right? So x times 1, actually no, x already looks like the multiplication symbol, doesn't it? So let's not do that. Y times 1 equals y is what this means. Right, so 3 times 1 equals 3, 5 times 1 equals 3, any number you can say, even fractions. Right, so let's do this. 3/4 times 1 equals 3/4. Decimals, and I know they're the same thing, but just to clear that up, let's do 0.52 times 1 equals 0.52. So this isn't only whole numbers. This is any number. That's why it says any. See there? Any number times 1 is that number. Okay? So now it looks like we got that done. Now let's talk about the zero property of multiplication. Right? So what that means is the product of any number and 0 is 0. Okay, now that again although this should make more sense because we talked about the identity, this is basically the kind of like the opposite, but it's similar in some ways to the identity property. Right, so the product of any number, again, let's use, instead of that variable, let's use an actual number. Let's go 3 again. 3. But the only difference is it's 0 and 0. Right, so now we have 3 times 0 equals 0. Right, so now let's try this with something else, right? Let's go with 195. 195. 195 times 0 equals 0. Right, so now we realize, this could work with any number. So now that is why it's called the 0 property, right? It's not called a 1 property, the 2 property, right? It's called the 0 property. Because when you think about what multiplication means, it's this number done this many times, right? So we have 1 is added 10 times. Sorry, I'm going to continue that here, the equation there. So 1 is added 10 times. What does that equal? That equals 1 times 10, right? So if 3 is added 0 times, well then that doesn't amount to anything. Right, so that's what the 0 property of multiplication is. Guys, it's problem time. Okay, so the game we're going to be playing today in problem time is called Which Property? Okay, so red is going to represent commutative property, green is going to represent the identity, and 0 will represent blue. Or, okay, I used a commutative property there and that did not work. Blue will represent 0. Okay, not the other way around. Okay? So now I'm going to show you an example how this is going to work. So if I circled everything like this, okay, that would mean I thought that this equation showed the 0 property, this equation showed the identity property, and this equation showed the commutative property. Okay, so that's what I mean. So what I want you to do, if you know the rules, I want you to go and post your answers down below by saying, okay, I think A was commutative, B was identity, and C was 0. Okay, but don't post that. I want you to post your score. Okay, so write down your answers aside. Okay? And then, once I check it, post your score. Okay, did you get 4 out of 4? Did you get 2 out of 4? Something like that. Post it in the comments below. Check your answers with everybody else who did this. Okay? So now let's do this. Take a moment, pause the video, and write your answers. Okay, so I'm assuming that you've paused the video. Okay? So now I'm actually going to circle the answers and I'm going to explain it. That's commutative. That's identity. And that one's the zero property. Okay? And this one represents none of the properties. Okay? So this one doesn't represent anything. Okay? Now I'm going to explain. First, starting with identity. Okay? How could you tell? Well, the first hint that you had is that it had a 1 in it. Right? And the second hint was that one of the factors was the product, which means that the other factor had to be 1, meaning it is the identity property. So it looks like identity property is B. Check. Okay, now I'm going to explain the zero property. Okay? Looks like we got that one as C. Right? So how do we know? Again, one of the major hints is that there's 2 zeros. Right? And if 0 was the product, right, then that means that it was the zero property. So that one's easy to spot. Like, insanely easy to spot. Now, commutative property is a little harder to spot, but I'm hoping you got that one. That was the most confusing one out of them all. What this means is that 5 times 20 is also equal to 20 times 5 because they have the same product. Okay? So we got that one as D. That's correct. Okay? So now so this identity was B, 0 was C, and commutative was D. Okay? So post your answers in the comment, not your answers actually, post your score in the comments below. Try not to spoil it for the future viewers. Okay? So, now that we've got that out of the way, I want you to thank you for watching this video. Okay? Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and keep an eye out for the next videos to come.